That's right. Live on Chicano Tube, live on Chicano Street. I appreciate the beautiful Linda Raza that's already tapping in. Do me a favor, though. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell. And when you hit the bell, you got to hit the all button. That way you're notified every single time that we go live. And we do go live. We got the special show landing on 9/11, a commemorative day. Maybe we'll get into that. Maybe we won't. Who knows? There's a lot to talk about. But here, I have the honor to one more time introduce mi hermano Pete Hernandez, running for District 18. Mi hermano, how are you?
I'm good, Mikey. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here. Back on Chicano Tube. We were just recently chatting away, right? Getting into the reality of politics impacting the Hispanic community.
And everything that's going on.
That's this district, by the way. Congressional District 18, 65% Hispanic. We are the voice of this community, of this district. We should be speaking the loudest. Sure.
And again, these are the names to look out for on November 5th. Raza, I'm not going to steer you wrong, okay? Everyone that comes to Chicano Street has the blue check mark, is verified next to them, so vote for them. And, of course, again, one more time, the lovely, distinguished chairwoman of the RNHA, Miss Karina Powers. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you for having us here and get to speak on La Voz Conservadora. We need to get more people, more raza, more involved and more informed, so that way they're an informed voter. They're not just a follower. And
yes,
we need to get more informed voters out there.
Yes, and don't forget, we're going to talk about whatever we got to plug in. Let's make sure we get plug-ins during this show. I know we got the radio show, the new radio show. Let's make sure to plug that one in. And, of course, the beautiful, smoking, sexy, hot executive producer, Miss Chicano Tube is in the building. Amor.
Hello, everyone. So excited to have our guest here today and discuss, stuff that is going on. The elections coming up. Of course, we're going to talk about the debates and what Pete and what Karina have going on. So thank you very much for tuning in.
Oh, we're super excited, man. There's so much to get into. Let's just go ahead and get into it. We got to just dive right into it, right? I did a little live. I was letting the people know midday today that this is going to be once and for all finally settled. Where does the raza fall when it comes to values, principle, and beliefs? I put something in the thumbnail that's a little bit catchy. Is the raza, are we conservative or are we liberal? Now, I don't even know if we should say the word liberal, because mostly nowadays it's not even liberal, it's mostly communist. I mean, let's just keep this a buck. People might get mad, but it is what it is. We're going to speak the real right here on Chicano Street. Real quick, Pete, how's the campaign going?
It's going really well, Mikey. Yeah, we've actually just had a big canvassing effort. Actually got my billboards up. We have signs coming in. I have billboards on the 101. We have in the Alum Rock area right in front of the Mexican Heritage Plaza down in Alum Rock area.
San Jose.
We have from meet and greets being planned. Well, here's the reality, right? This is the difference between me and my opponent. Congressional District 18, at the end of the day, is definitely very Hispanic, minority, very rural, agricultural. And I can tell you what, like out in the district, you don't see none of her. You don't see none of her signs. You don't see her actually engaging the public, the voters. But that's what we're doing on the day-to-day. And I think the most exciting part is volunteers throughout the whole 4 counties, San Benito, Santa Cruz, and South Santa Clara County, and Monterey obviously being the second heavyweight in this district, right? The second highest amount of voters in Monterey County. And that's where all my volunteers are literally lining up, a lot of engagement, talking to people one-on-one. What are your issues? What are you dealing with? And ultimately what it comes down to is talking policies that are actually going to benefit the Chicano community, and that's exactly what I'm passionate about.
They're saying that his mic needs to be higher, honey.
Okay, maybe just get a little bit closer, Pete, if you can. And we'll see what we could do. All right. All we got to do is just speak into it. And Karina, what has been going on? We got all the way from now to November 5th. What has your schedule been looking like? What has your agenda been looking like? What are you doing right now?
There's so much. This morning I was in San Jose, and then I stopped by in Santa Cruz, and then I'm here now in this area just trying to get the boots on the ground kind of active, informed voter, making sure that everybody's on top of what's happening within their own communities. I'm also starting a conservative talk show, radio show in Spanish. It's KSCO. It's actually going to be on KOMY, which is Comey 1340, every Monday from 2 to 4. I speak fluent Spanish, and it's time that we informed our community and that they're not just getting, ribbon boxed information, that they're actually getting the whole logistics and they understand how to understand policy, how to read what's happening and not just look at the titles and go beyond that.
That's wonderful. Sounds like your itineraries are busy. Let's go ahead and get into a lot of the topics that the Raza want to talk about today. Obviously, yesterday we had the debate. We don't know if it's going to be the only presidential debate. Obviously, they switched candidates. It seems like the last candidate did so bad during the debate. It looked like he just retired. They basically looked like they pushed him out of the way, and they pushed someone in the way that really has been wishy-washy and flip-flopping. So, it's funny because a lot of the Raza, the social media, the internet, right? The whole thing they've been running on right now is not policies, not principles, not morals, but a little bit of slander, a little bit of smear that looks like they're standing and running on, right? They're talking about pets right now and pets and ducks and que tacos de gato y tortas de pato. And that sounds funny, gente, and it's okay. It sounds funny. But do you notice they actually think we're this dumb? Like, we're supposed to discredit someone who had the best economy in the history of the presidency.
That's right.
Yeah.
44 presidents before him didn't bring the economy. But what they want you and me to focus on was, look, he has 2 different color socks on. Whatever it is. I mean, that's the internet. What'd you think about last night's debate? And we're going to go ahead and open it up.
It was ridiculous. I mean, the biggest thing that stood out to me, it's just like you said, Mikey, they were trying to focus on emotion, right? I mean, you could tell Kamala Harris, she was very scripted. I mean, there's definitely questions about, if there was some kind of organizational planning prior to that event where you had these 2 moderators, which maybe at that point prior to the event, they were part of the Kamala team. But yeah, when it came down to the actual issues that they talked about, if you notice, there was definitely a consistency. And that's all the things they were hating about Donald Trump. They wanted to bring up, right? They wanted to bring up the election. They wanted to bring up the thing in Charlottesville, right? They wanted to bring up abortion. They wanted all the hot topics, the emotional topics. They talked very little to nothing about the economy. They try to pigeonhole him with the Russia issue.
I'm sorry. We keep hearing the audio on his mic. Maybe.
Yeah, that's it. No, he's going to speak a little bit closer. That's all we got to do. Yeah, that's it. Other than that, we can swap out the mic.
Okay.
But I'm not going to do that mid-live.
But yeah, no. So anyways.
But I can.
Policy-driven issues were not the conversation.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
When it came down to what should have happened, is there needed to be a lot more fact-checking on the Kamala side. They didn't do that. They obviously played the game of attacking Donald Trump, and they didn't get into the policy discussions. I mean, I can only imagine. It reminded me honestly, Mikey, of what happened when I canvassed the district in the primary, and I knocked on this lady's door. I literally hit Democrat homes. That was my goal. And so when I knocked on this one door, there was this older lady. It's funny because she reminded me of my mom, and that's what I told her when I talked to her a little bit, and we had a full-on Spanish conversation. And she's like, it's funny how when you basically knocked on my door, I'm literally have my TV on, and on the TV is this man in the White House that's telling me that my life is supposed to be good. The economy is supposed to be really good. And here I am coming home upset because I had to put my meat and my eggs back on the shelf because I can't afford them, right? She's on a fixed income. She's retired. Like, this is the reality that people are dealing with, and they're talking that kind of nonsense. Like, people don't, they don't want
Cats and ducks.
They want to talk about the issues that actually impact
She
them.
laughs,
And they ignored it. I mean, that's all they did is ignore it.
Yeah. What'd you take on it, Karina?
They
What'd you think
ignored
about
a lot
the
of
debate?
policy issues. She evaded a lot of the questions. The abortion issue. She didn't really touch. She didn't answer the question. She was not answering questions. She was actually going around the questions. And as she's in an interview, you got to think that she's in an interview for the United States presidency seat. And honestly, as a boss, like if you were looking at this as a CEO for the country, she's not answering properly. And they were just mainly attacking. But if you understand politics and you saw what was happening yesterday, there was 3 against 1, which is Donald Trump. There was the the different people that were interviewing the commentators, the one, what do you call them, the moderators, and we know the history of them, that they're really good friends. The owner of that chain is actually really good friends to Kamala's husband.
That's what I heard
So
yesterday.
tell me how that is not unbiased, know. And so there has to be some kind of connection, and there has to be another debate, because if it's unfair to the Americans, we need to have an honest, fair debate. Last night's debates was not honest, and it was not fair. And she avoided a lot of the questions. It was very well rehearsed. So she must have known beforehand what the questions were going to be lined up for her. So
yeah, it looked very, very scripted.
Very much
I
so.
think she brings up a really good point, because I don't know if you guys paid attention after with the post debate kind of commentary. I know they had these little groups of supposedly
really
undecided.
quick, they keep saying that it's that mic, honey. So we're gonna have to start sharing the mic.
Just sharing
Everybody's
it, yeah.
saying
No,
that.
no, you're good. It's just it's a little low, because that's all it is.
Yeah.
Are
But
you
that's
sure?
fine. Yeah, just don't worry. Don't even.
Yeah,
mention
yeah.
it.
So
It's fine.
So anyways,
He's
after
gonna
the
speak
debate,
more into it.
after the debate, they had these study groups, right? These individuals,
Yeah.
undecided voters, and these individuals basically said, what it came down to, what I heard, was one person that actually made my life better, and the other person's attacking them on how she plans on making all of our lives better when she's the one in office right now.
Right.
Like, it's very clear. Kamala's just scripting herself for 30 days, right? Or 45 days up until the election. She has no concern for the reality of
Absolutely not.
Ultimately, those that are suffering right now, she's not willing to address those issues, because if she was, she'd be doing it right now.
Exactly.
And I was waiting, and my only point that I was definitely frustrated a little bit with President Trump was he should have came out of the gate right in the beginning saying, look, this is what I plan on doing, and by the way, this is what you're not doing, right? You're in office right now. These things aren't happening. Joe Biden's like on a perpetual vacation, and there's nothing being addressed, while our economy's suffering, and potential third world war.
Yeah.
Like, all these issues are right now.
And her mission right now is to disassociate herself as far as she can from Biden's whole thing. But she's partner in crime with Biden. She sat
Absolutely.
next to him, and she is deciding a lot of these issues that are happening that we're living through right now. So she can't walk away from that. And that was pretty much the cover up that was happening last night, is to kind of deflect from being on the side of Biden's side.
Now, I thought actually that the moderators from last night's debate were a little bit weaker
Very much so.
than the first debate. I think the first debate, they were just ready to cut off mics, etc. The last night, it looks like they were actually given more responses than usual. No, another minute. Someone would
Exactly.
come in for another one. So I thought that was more advantageous to 45
For sure.
than it was to the vice
Yeah,
president.
you're right. I mean,
No?
still they would cut him off. I mean, they gave her more time, and I think they didn't fact check her, right?
Not
Rather than
once.
Jumping in to fact
Okay,
check.
Not
so
once
Not once.
fact
That's
checked.
exactly, that was one of the main reasons
And
that
they
upset me.
fact-checked
They
him
fact
11
checked him
times.
11 times, and not once did they fact check on the majority of her lies. She was lying after lying, like Project 25, when she kept repeating that, when it's clearly she kept lying. She kept lying,
Yeah.
and not once. Okay, so I remember this one, and I wanted to ask Karina. Because Karina's been to Trump's rallies. So she said this, and they didn't fact check her, and she blatantly lied to the American people. Trump has been the president that has had the best rallies, right? The majority of Americans show up, and he sells out all the time. So, Karina, I know you've been to his rallies. Do the people walk out? Because that's exactly what she
Never.
said. That's
Never.
what lying hyena Kamala said.
So I've been to his rallies. One specific one that I will talk about is because it was in Las Vegas. The weather was 106 degrees. The people, I would get invited VIP, so we're in the front rows. And when you look back, I stood on top of the chairs to look back to see the red wave, what they call it. I could not see an end of it. And these people were lined up for hours. Long before I got there, they were already lined up for hours to line up at 100 above weather. And the fact that Donald Trump goes out there and he speaks for over an hour, sometimes 2 hours in this weather outside, and he's willing to do that. Where is Kamala? Why isn't she answering to Americans? So as Latinos, we need to, cut that out with allowing them to cheat on us, because they're honestly cheating us from the information that they should be putting out for us. They're cheating us on what we need to be asking those right questions. And she's hiding. She's in the hiding, and she only wants to be in controlled situations, and she needs to be ready to ask the question of the people, answer the questions of the people. And she's hiding and not getting in front of of her own people that she's already supposedly, sticking out her neck for.
Yeah.
So that's a lot's going on in the debate.
I mean, the biggest frustration to me, Mikey, is that when I'm listening to her, she's openly lying. Like, she's like, all I can think is, who do you think of in your life, if they're willing to keep playing that like record of manipulating you, literally thinking that they could keep lying to you. They think this little of you, right? They think that you're that small, that you're that dumb, that you're just not going to see right through the lies. I mean, when she talked about not taking away guns, she's been on the record, right? She's for red flag laws. What are red flag laws? Like, she depends on the ambiguity or the things that are basically confusing, so that she can manipulate you and make you think that somehow she's on your side. A red flag law could basically be, it could be interpreted in so many ways. It gives the power more to the government to be able to take your gun for any excuse, right? I mean, and the things that she talked about with the economy, complete lie. She's saying that he was going to create inflation. Are you kidding me? Anybody who wants to shrink government, inflation is government driven. There's plenty of people that have said it. The inflation is driven by government spending beyond its means. That's why they need to cut the credit card, right? Because that's the reality of government spending. It's beyond our ability. Basically, the gross domestic product is the amount of production the economy's driving. By default, that means anything beyond that, if you're spending more than what you're making, right? Anybody knows if you have $1,000 a week income, and you're spending $1,500 a week, you're in the hole, right? You're in trouble. You're putting things on credit card. That's what the government's doing. She somehow blamed him for raising inflation.
No,
just lie after lie.
Let me ask you guys this. Me and Miss Chicano Tube are a little bit newer to the political platform, but we just dove all the way in and haven't turned back yet. I want to piggyback off what you just said. You've known que mala, the Raza calls her que mala eres. I know.
She needs a song. She needs her own song. Que mala eres.
So she's been flip-flopping on policies. One thing you just mentioned right now, I believe what 45 said is true. She will take away our arms in a hot second, gente. Right. She said she wouldn't last night. These are all promises just to sit on the throne. As soon as she's on the throne, guess what she's going to do? Friends help friends. She's part of the establishment. She was on the record not too long ago saying, I want a ban on all assault weapons. Do you, or Karina, do you know what other policies has she flip-flopped on now that she is the candidate for the DNC?
The fracking one.
That's a huge one for us Hispanics. Huge one.
I mean,
fracking.
Yes.
In California.
I want you to explain that too. Maybe the Raza doesn't know what fracking even.
I keep hearing.
On day one, when Biden administration came in, day one from the administration, they pretty much they pretty much cut the whole fracking. And I think that many Americans are unaware how Hispanics are directly tied into that fracking.
Yep.
Who does the construction? Who does all the manufacturing? Who does all the automobile industry?
Yep.
All those industries were hit hard after the fracking. And those families were our families, our Hispanic community. We have businesses. We either work for employers or we build our own businesses on that fact.
So what's the definition of fracking? Because that's also a term that people don't know. Well, what's fracking?
Fracking is a process. I visited the San Ardo oil fields
and this is in my district, Congressional District 18, and they did tell me that the majority of the employees, the workers, are the Hispanic community, especially obviously in this district. But fracking is a process where they inject water into the ground that ultimately extracts. So it's a whole extraction process to extract the oil. It's actually a lot more of an efficient and cleaner process. They even showed me how there was actually agricultural fields where that separation of that oil, they were able to do it in a way where the water that came out was, because it's extracted, is literally pure water. So you could use it for irrigation. Don't believe me. Here's the thing, and I want my Hispanic community to know this, right? I hate being called a politician. Don't believe me. I encourage you not to believe me. Look it up. That's all I can say. Do your homework. I don't even have to ask you to trust me. That's not what I'm saying. Do your homework. But it's bottom line is the Hispanic community. The one, what California. If you look at the bill that actually eliminated 2-cycle engines, you're dealing with not just off-road vehicles and dirt bikes. You're dealing with the elimination of lawnmowers, of weed whackers, of gas-powered engines. What are those used majority in the commercial industry and the business industry? For landscaping businesses. Who are the majority owners of landscaping businesses? The Hispanic community, right? So it's all lies. Like, they don't care about you. Every time they position themselves to say that they care, the only thing they give you is what they can control over you.
So
right?
Fracking is a bad policy that's going to hurt the people.
Yes.
Anti-fracking bills destroy this Hispanic income.
Anti-fracking hurts the economy and
right.
will trickle down and ripple down and hurt me and you, the Raza people of color.
Yep.
What other policies that you know that she's flip-flopped on now that she's running for president?
Well, one of the other ones, too, that I can think of is, so she's touting, when it comes to investment in infrastructure, she was really proud of the Infrastructure and Investment Act, right? That was the Inflation Reduction Act. That bill, yes, it was even supported by some Republicans, but there's a whole nother issue, right? So this is not a partisan conversation that I'm trying to make, right? This is not about, hey, I'm pro Republican Party. There are Republicans that I completely disagree with. But with that bill, the proposition was basically we're going to invest in things that are going to be tax saving type or reduction of cost measures, dropping, the lower cost of insulin, things that we're going to. But if you look at the bill, it was an omnibus bill. So that means there was different things being included in it. One of the things that was also included, which is basically the Green New Deal type policies having to do with investing in green energy. But it was a debt bill. Bottom line is it was a debt bill because it's beyond the means of the actual production of the country. So that bill invested in things that the average private sector industry will not invest in. If you're going to start a business that you're somehow actually going to try to make money off of it, in the energy sector, there's a reason why 80% of our grid is driven by fossil fuels because it's the most efficient. It's the most densest energy.
Stable.
It's cleaner energy. We are cleaner in the fossil fuel sector in the United States because of the heavy regulations, right? The carbon emissions, the carbon capture. That's why you have catalytic converters. So there are things that actually you can still use with fossil fuels that are still lower emissions, right? We were still dropping carbon emission rates for years historically because of the advancements of technologies. But what she proposed basically is climate energy, forcing that investment, putting on a credit card, and now guess what we're dealing with? $35 trillion in debt, $1 trillion in interest cost alone. Interest, $1 trillion. None of us will ever reach that amount of income. And that's just the interest on the credit card.
Jeez Louise. One thing I didn't ask, I'm going to ask Miss Chicano Tube, what was your take on the debate? What did you see last night? And just talk right into the mic. Straighten it up. Okay. There you go.
Can you guys hear me?
All right.
Hopefully they can hear me. So definitely the 3-on-1. If anything, Kamala did not win the debate. She was totally handed, it was completely rehearsed, but it was not even the rehearsal to me. It was the two moderators. And last night I was watching Megyn Kelly. You guys know who Megyn Kelly is?
That's right.
Yes.
So Megyn Kelly was in charge. She was one of the moderators 8 years ago when Trump versus Hillary.
That's right.
Probably the most epic, right, Henny? The most
Oh,
epic,
yeah.
Yes.
debates.
Debates of all time.
They both did great. But so she hammered Trump with
She
crazy
did. She was fair.
questions. She was very fair.
Yeah.
And last night I was listening to her, and she said it was the most disgusting debate and the most disgusting moderators. And so I totally believe it was a complete joke for the nation. I mean, completely one-sided. Fact-checked Trump 11 times and didn't fact-check Kamala one time out of like everything. 99% of what she said was a lie.
Yeah.
So I was very disappointed, mostly in the moderators. I think CNN did better. They were at least, I felt like they're a little more fair, although, you know, they are a very liberal channel. But obviously, I think you mentioned, Pete, and I had heard it through Megan Kelly, that the male moderator is friends with Kamala. They're close friends. So, you know, it's completely biased. So very, very disappointed. Where has journalism come to be now in this time and age here in this country? There is no such thing as journalism. I think the people are the journalists nowadays. You know,
Exactly.
people, the real people out there creating videos. I don't watch anything on the TV at all. Everything I research is people independent journalists.
I think that as Americans, we have to do our due diligence and do our own research, because we've allowed these people to feed this information to us and not knowing whether it's true or not. And we voted for these individuals, and we're suffering these consequences, and we're going to inherit our future with this. We're indebting them for the future.
Hello.
So much debt that we're creating for our future generations. It's unbelievable. If you understood economics, you would be appalled at what they're doing to our country at this moment.
That's right.
So one of the questions, I'm hearing people saying things like Kamala, Kamala sounded like she has more to offer in the future of America. I want to see what the drunk investor, what is she going to offer that's better for America? Darlene, you're saying Trump couldn't handle a couple of moderators. Well, they were just blatantly attacking him. Now, here's one stupid question they asked. When they said, when Trump had, previously mentioned that Kamala in the past would go by Indian, which she is Indian,
Oh, that's right.
And now she's
The race
black.
question.
And he spoke facts, because that's the truth. Up until recently, she started calling herself black. And they asked him, they were attacking him. And then they asked her, what are your thoughts? So going back into your feelings.
Yeah.
And so if you guys want to vote based on your feelings, go right ahead. Not me. I'm going based on policies. I'm going to vote based on who's going to make our country better, who's going to give us more money, who's going to have safer borders, who's going to protect our country. And I don't want, in this case, we all know that Biden is a joke. And like Trump said, Kamala is Biden. Why doesn't she go to the White House? Did you guys hear when he said that?
Yes.
And start
working.
At the end, finally.
Work on that border.
Get to
But
work.
no,
Wake 'em up, get 'em out of
avoiding
bed.
the true important questions, because Trump was asking those questions.
Yeah,
The moderators want.
Well,
Now, people call 46. I don't know if you knew. The Raza's notorious with nicknames. Que mala eres. They
Que
came out
mala
with that
eres.
one. And then 46. It's an English name, but they call him Weekend at Bernie's. That they're saying there. Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
That he's sitting on the beach in the chair, but he's not moving.
That's right.
So who's really running the country? Really quick, I got a question for both of you, because I said this on a live earlier today. We're going to settle once and for all. Is the Raza by nature, Pete? Are we conservative or are we liberal, and why? Just for the viewers that might be tapping into the show for the first time and don't know anything about politics. I had someone call in my show last week and said, Mike, I don't know nothing about politics. If you had a 30-second elevator pitch, who to vote for, what would it be? But they asked me that question. I have an answer, but Pete, is the Raza conservative or liberal, and how does that align with the Raza's values?
I mean, if we look back from where we came from Mexico, right? The majority of the country is Catholic, right? There's traditional values there. We have a sentiment of what it means, what marriage means, right? It's considered a sacred element for us to be married, just the same for us to be for us to have big families. I mean, that's always been a big thing. So family, faith, and individuality. This is one of the things that I don't think
Exactly.
is talked about well enough. If you look at the Bill of Rights, the individual rights, there's a reason why the founders intended to preserve individual freedoms. The very things that this country was founded on are the very things that the Mexicano community, the Raza, is very driven by, right? We're bootstrapped, right? We don't want that welfare check. We want to create our own business. If we had more opportunity to create business, we would do it. If we had more opportunity to know what the process is, right? Give us an access to that information on how to invest, what it means to drive capital into some kind of a business and reinvest and have a game plan, right? A business plan. We would 100% do it. And I'm seeing it. I mean, I'm meeting people that are they're very amazing people, because I know when it comes down to it, they created their own path. So what happens in a government system that doesn't believe in that? Doesn't believe in the individual. It's what you have today, right? So to me, the biggest thing with the debate was, what are you looking at? You're looking at a system that wants you to be indebted and in control by them, right? The government system, and technically the anti-government, the anti-corporate type system. The Donald Trump bottom up, like, hey, we want to give you power back. We want you to basically chart your own course, right? Manifest destiny. That's the opportunity, I think. So that, to your point,
Yes.
Hispanic community, 100% conservadora. That's who we are. That's what we believe in. That's part of our culture, right? I mean, I remember going to Mexico, going to the posadas. I mean, we're not only singing about Christ, but we're by default, right? It's a family affair, right? I have fond memories of going to Mexico, and it was always a family comes first type of an environment, always.
Karina, what is the Raza conservative by nature or liberal, and why?
I'm gonna get to how we are conservative. Is as Latinos, we don't want handouts. We're a very hardworking community, and we're very hardworking. To me, a handout is a way of oppression, because they're limiting us to the capacity that we have as Latinos to propel forward and to have a seat at that table.
That's right.
And the seat at that table means that we're the decision makers. Right. And for the numbers of Latinos that we have in this, and especially here in California, we should be driving force for decision making.
100%.
And the fact that they're just dangling carrots over us with promises, and then nothing's happening, that should be a huge red flag.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then as family, we hold our families very near and dear. We are all involved with everything as the aspect when it comes to our families. As I'm a Latina, mother of 5. And believe me, I know exactly where all my kids are doing. I'm on top of everything. And so we need to be involved as a community as to when they're stepping foot outside,
Right.
what they're being involved with outside, what they're throwing to our children and they're bringing back home. And that's where we are conservative in that nature. And as far as our faith,
Yes.
we hold our faith very near and dear to our heart. And
Yes.
to allow this, other party to tell us that
Yeah.
we don't.
You know,
We
it's-
don't
it's-
honor our faith. Yes, we do.
I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the things that I said is an automatic red flag to the Raza. Automatic red flag is when they want to do away with God.
That's right.
In the schools, take
Yeah.
them out of the money. We don't even want to hear the 10 Commandments anymore. Imagine, gente, you tell your papas, tus abuelitos, that you want nothing to do with God. Does that sound like a Raza value
Nope.
or not?
Nope.
Absolutely not. What that's going to do is actually just going to let more evil inside and permeate, and then
Well,
things go the way they go.
And for those that don't know, me and Karina are delegates actually in the California Republican Party. We push for family values. We push for individual freedoms. We push for the preservation of faith, right? I mean, if you think about it, the Democrat Party, right, and this is not partisan, but it's just the reality of the situation. Every party has a platform. Well, guess what the Democrat platform says? God does no longer belong, right? Literally, God is dead. They took out, I don't know if you saw that in the last presidential cycle, they actually eliminated that religious sentiment, that God sentiment out of the equation. I mean, Robert Kennedy said it himself, right? He's a devout Catholic himself, and ultimately he believes in, the old liberalism, right? That's where people get confused, is the old liberalism, classical liberalism definitely has some fundamental things that they respect, especially freedom of speech. Now all
More
of a sudden,
blue collar.
well,
They
and guess
lean
what
more toward the
happens?
blue
I
collar.
mean, you don't even have to believe me. Again, just test it. What happens when you take God out of the equation? You by default take away any voice that he would have, which means the individual, you become God at that point. Individual rights no longer matter because the rights are dependent upon who's in power, and they get to create the rules, which means they get to take away your rights if they want to or not. The ball's always changing. But in our belief system is there's certain things you don't touch. You leave those alone, right? I have billboards on the 101 right now. It says, when you come after our children, the
Right.
government has gone too far. Why? Because of the fundamental thing that we believe in as Raza. Our kids are sacred. We protect those kids. It's our duty to preserve them. We want them to have a better life than we did when we grew up.
Yeah.
Right now, the way it looks, they're going to have a worse life. They're not only going to have less freedoms, the Marxist communist sentiment of Kamala Harris, that is the reality. That sentiment permeates through now her policies, where she's, like I said, she's willing to take away your gun rights. She's willing to she wants to pigeonhole you into a system where it's dependent. She believes in single payer healthcare, right? She's 100% supportive with strengthening Obamacare, which all that means is you're going down the single payer path. And at that point, you're socializing the system.
Right.
So the people that produce are not going to have an incentive to give. They're not going to they're ultimately not going to want to produce. All that's going to do is decrease the capital. It's going to increase cost. Life is going to get hard for everybody. What's happening with the party over here in California, where they allowed illegals to have $150,000 for a first-time home buyer program, right? Even though that failed eventually, it just shows the sentiment. They want to take what you have. When you produce, they want to take it from you. If you don't produce, they want to act like they care about you. But the system itself is made to make sure that you're stuck in the system. Otherwise, there is no upward mobility in the process. It's just not it's not a reality. Anybody can test me on it. Like I said, do your homework. Don't believe me.
That's right. That's right. I want to get to another subject, unless anyone else has anything to interject. I want to get to another subject. This is a huge one, and this is something they bring up every 4 years, and I want the Raza to be aware of it, because no matter who it is, when they come, they need our vote. Okay, we're 40% of California. All we're working on right now is just uniting and putting our voice out. And you know what I think the people are sensing right now? I think they sense genuine authenticity. I think when they see like Kamala on the TV, they said, wow, what a very polished politician. But the people aren't dumb. Not my viewers, absolutely not. They can sense who's authentic and who's for the people. Every 4 years, they come after our vote. And one of the centerpieces they talk about is the southern border.
That's right.
The southern border, right? Let me ask anyone, and we'll open it up. Is there an invasion at the southern border? Some people say the border's closed already and that there's no invasion. Is there an invasion at the southern border? Is it really a problem, or is it?
Kamala Harris admitted it. I mean, her and Joe Biden are why are they saying they want to shut the border? Why would you shut a border that doesn't have a problem? Why are they all of a sudden literally picking up Donald Trump's right? Why are they picking up his platform and saying, oh, we should repeat that because that's what's popular? Amongst Democrats, this is being polled, and they have an issue with the border being wide open. Why? Because it's a real thing what's happening. 20 million illegal immigrants, right? No matter, this is not anti-gente at all.
Yeah, they get too confused. The
Because
word
it's not
play,
even
they try to
Raza that's
run
crossing
up
over.
the word play,
Yeah,
right?
it's not
Calling
even
them
Raza coming
illegal,
over. It's
people get
other
mad.
people. Yeah.
But let's just keep it a buck.
Yeah,
okay, they're
exactly.
coming over in droves, and we don't know who the people are.
Right.
Well, and here's another reality. 8 out of 10 people coming across the border are not Mexican
No.
nationals. They're not from Mexico.
Right.
They're from every other country. So if you gambled, what are your chances when you have 8 to 8, there's 2 to 10 chances, or 2 out of 8 chances that you're going to get a job. Right? If you come over here, 8 people that come here are not from Mexico. Guess what? Mexicanos are being ousted. That's the reality.
Okay, so someone is asking, and I don't think they can hear, they can't hear me. I was almost practically yelling, and they told me they couldn't hear me. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. They can't really hear me. Someone's saying something about, so is the paisas. That's a derogatory word for our gente, right? So saying something, is it true that the paisas are eating everyone's dogs and cats, asking for a friend? So can you guys clarify?
Asking for a friend. I know what that's about. This is not the paisas. These are Venezolanos.
Haitians.
I'm sorry,
Haitians.
Haitians. Correction.
Yes.
They're not
So-
paisas.
Ohio?
They're
It was
Haitians.
discussed back in August 27th on a city council in Springfield, Ohio, that was brought up that they are eating and they are taking the animals that are out in the ponds, the different ducks, different animals and whatsoever. So there was an open discussion in Springfield. You can look it up. It's out there. The video's out there. This is public record. And that's one thing that they didn't fact checked her on that, because there is records, and that's just the one that I'm bringing up because there's several other.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this is just, again, they're acting native to how they acted inside
And their
their country.
countries,
But
right.
they're coming over
That's
to
a
a more
perfect explanation.
domesticated country.
That's a
where it's
perfect
like, hey, wait a
explanation.
second. Those ducks that you see walking across the pond, that's not a carniceria.
Yeah.
Okay, these are animals that are in common areas that need to be protected.
Yep.
And so they're again, because people, that's what they're saying right now. Okay, it's fake, it's not happening. The 45 is delusional. But gente, we're not living in the cities that are getting these people bust into every single week. Unless you're living in one of those cities, you have no idea what they're going through
Exactly.
because they're pulling up 4 or 5 buses every weekend. Governor, what's the governor in Texas' name?
Abbott.
Abbott. Abbott don't play. He's like,
No.
okay, you say you want to help them? Vámonos. Here you go. We'll drop them off at the
Take 'em.
doorstep. And the funny thing is when they get there, well, now we ran out of resources.
Yeah.
Oh, you think?
That's right.
Oh,
That's
you
right.
think?
Not until it hits your backyard. Not until you find people, random strangers living in your backyard and taking over, and and then you have those squatter rights, and you can't get rid of them.
The people that are denying because they just believe the MSN, they can't hear me, so I'm just gonna.
You're just 60% power.
Yeah.
Can't hear you.
They
It's
can't
just
hear you.
muffled.
Okay, so
Better speak
they're
into it.
saying
And
something.
lean it to the end of the table.
So they're saying something like, it's not true. Springfield said it wasn't true. Obviously,
That was the city
that was the
manager.
city manager, but it's not the people. The
No,
people.
yeah.
There's calls to the police, and there's video cams, right?
Yeah.
The body cams, right? Where they show the evidence. So it's not the people. The
And-
people are complaining. The
That's
people
right.
are seeing it with their own eyes in public parks, right?
I-
where they're beheading ducks.
I,
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I served as a county supervisor. I can tell you, I'm telling you, CAOs of the county, city managers of the city, they are politicians. Whether you like it or not, they're administrators. They
CAO
got a
stands for,
county administrative official.
and what do they oversee? Or
They're basically the executive of the board, right? They will always play nice with everybody, and they want to make they are the anti-collateral damage people. Like, they do not want bad PR. It's just the reality. I mean, again, this is the world that I lived in. So when it comes down to what they're saying is, just look up the video. I mean, look up basically the feed of actual videos where there was a police feed where they showed a lady who was eating literally an animal. And yeah, it's just, and I think even more importantly, right? Fine, if you want to eat dogs, I guess that's your choice.
right.
Aside from that issue, I think what you just said, Mikey, in the beginning, I thought was really
Right.
profound. Because you're right. Like, what happens if a stranger comes into your house that has really bad habits? They're going to live out those habits in your house.
Yeah.
Why do you have a border, an immigration process? And again, and yeah, for sure we can argue that there needs to fix the immigration process. We need to make it simpler, a little bit more efficient. We need to make sure that those that want to come here have an opportunity to come here. Separate issue. But to your point, there's actually a book, Rasim Kassam. He's ex-Muslim, lived in Europe. You can tell he has a European accent. You should look up the book called No-Go Zones. He actually wrote about it, lived over there. What's happening in Europe is happening here technically with the flooding of the borders because they had a very open borders process. And over there, it's basically the Muslim population, right? Because they're closer to the Middle Eastern countries. And what happens when you have a whole different culture all of a sudden being a part of your culture, that even their religious laws are different than your laws and your civil laws. They're going to end up making sure that those laws come first. And you ended up having where the European Union allowed them to literally have their own autonomous zones. All of a sudden, now they're doing things Sharia law-wise. And if you look up Sharia law, it's not a pretty picture. It all of a sudden, now you're going to have basically a whole different legal system that's like a subculture, a tribal culture that starts to divide that area. And then before you know it, you're hearing about beheadings and all these crazy things. Again, don't believe me, do your homework.
Right.
So bottom line is multiculturalism. There's a difference between respecting different cultures, and there's a difference to basically allowing multiculturalism to replace your culture, replace your legal system, right? There should be different cultures in a nation. Technically, we are the melting pot, but there's an equality under the law. There's a reason why we have all the amendments, right? We have equal protections. We have separation of powers. We have a due process. You're officially innocent before proven guilty. All these things make us all equal, no matter if you're Raza or Chinese or whatever. As long as we all respect it, there's homeostasis, there's peace, there's love, and nothing but encouragement for each other. That's not what we're talking about when you allow invasion and you literally set aside your own laws and allow them to do whatever they want. That's what we're dealing with right now. That's why Kamala Harris is such a liar, because she doesn't care about this country. If she did, she would not allow people to die. I mean, look at the human trafficking and the sex trafficking, the children that are dying. I mean, it's a reality, and there's a complete ignorance of it. I mean, to a certain extent, it's encouraging that as a commodity, right? The people that are coming are nothing but commodities. They're sold to the highest bidder at that point.
Can anyone at this table name anything that Harris has done in the last 3.5 years substantial? Anything?
Nothing.
Lied. She's
Well,
lied.
Negative.
Negative. So hopefully they can hear me. I challenge the chat, those that hate Trump and voting for Kamala. I challenge you to name at least 3 good things she's done for our country. Name them, please.
And name their policies. Name the policies that she has offered for America.
Better the last 3.5 years.
So, you know, one thing, there's one party that completely avoids this topic, and it's kind of piggybacking off what we're just talking about, the southern border, and this is talking about child trafficking.
That's right.
Why do you think the Democratic Party completely avoids that there is any kind of issue or anything going on with child sex trafficking? And matter of fact, it almost looks like in certain counties, it looks like they almost help or become lenient to anyone that has those kind of charges.
Yep.
Why do you think that is?
Yep.
Because they're not involved. They're not affected directly. When you see it on a close level and you're connected to the DA's office and you're seeing the reports that are coming in here in our local districts, just on a local level, and you find out where it's coming from, what's the origins, and you see the atrocities that they're doing to these children here in our own backyard, then you would be more reactive. Because that is your neighbor. You're probably rubbing elbows with them when you go grocery shopping, and you don't even know it. You don't even know it, because they have allowed a full open door for these people to move in right next door to us.
Well, and you have to realize, I think, there's too much consistencies with laws when it comes to immigration laws. I mean, people are a commodity. They are. I mean, if you think about the allowing of even human trafficking, that by default means is you have a human slave trade, right? The folks that say that they're anti-slaves or they're anti-racism or whatever, somehow they're still not allowing it to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, that black market type environment that's being allowed, you can make the argument that they're okay with a two-class system, right? A shadow world and ultimately a legal world. Because if they did, they would actually fix these issues. But they don't want to fix these issues. I mean, technically speaking, the only time they talk about fixing these issues is every election cycle. They only want to bring it up because then at that point they want to score brownie points to get reelected. But what happens the next cycle? They don't fix those problems. My opponent, she's been in office 30 years, in Congress 30 years, I should say. She's been in office longer than that because she served locally also. But she was she's been in Congress 30 years. She's, I think, spent 10 or 12 of those years in the immigration committee. She's on the immigration committee. She's one of the top Democrats of the party, yet it's not fixed. Why is that? Why haven't they fixed the immigration process?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, why is it now that they're okay with, I mean, there's actually supposed to be a protest coming up from Mexicali where you have basically Mexicanos arguing that even in Mexicali, a lot of the chemicals that they're using in the agricultural production are toxic. There's cancer clusters down there. And the U.S. is doing it. Who's in charge right now? It's the Biden administration. Why is that still happening then? They care about people. Why is that happening? Right. You know, the Remain in Mexico policy, they eliminate it. They shut down the border, right? The building of the border wall. Right. The asylum process is completely violated, right? They have like 3 years out court processes with the immigration court system. They don't want to fix the problem. If they fix it, guess what? You don't need them. That's the problem. Yeah. If you fix that problem, right? If you know that you don't need someone because you just replaced your plumbing in your house, you don't need them for 10 or 20 years. Well, guess what? They don't want that. They need things to break. That's why they love China.
Yeah, it's kind
Yes.
of like dangling a carrot in front
It
of you,
is,
right? You want to
completely.
keep going, and that's basically what it is, right?
Yep.
Now, I have a personal connection to this. I have a cousin, and he's a second cousin, and he's a customs agent, okay? And about a month and a half, and he told me all these stories. Well, he told me about 5, 6 stories at a wedding. His own sister, it's only him and his sister's wedding. About 45 days before his own sister's wedding, he's a Border Patrol agent again. He caught 3 bullets, 223. That means, full metal jackets going through him. They went through his body.
Wow.
And thank God that he was still able, 45 days later, to
Wow.
dance with his sister at the wedding. And he told me at the wedding, he said, Mike, he said, they're coming over, and if they have either someone to protect, a shipment to protect, or they have a group of women or children,
That's right.
this is the time where when they encounter any kind of border
evil.
agents, it's shoot first.
Amen.
It's just shoot, get what you got to get across, get these kids, these women, get the cargamento, the shipments, etc.
Wow.
That's how I know it's a very real problem.
Yeah.
And I tell the Raza here on Chicano Street, I tell, you know what, when you want to bring up the border every 4 years, we're not anyone's political pawn, but unless you want to talk about what they're doing to the children and the trafficking,
Right.
because if they close that border,
That's right.
then there will be less assault cases that are constantly happening on
Yes.
the border. Children missing constantly.
Right.
It's huge. That's a huge issue. So I tell people, if you're going to bring the border up with me, unless we're going to address that, let's not talk about it.
That's right.
Every single 4 years.
So we
Sure.
got a question, and they can't hear me, honey, but I'm gonna say it. Oil prices are dependent upon supply and demand. Okay, presidential control is not as simple as what the people think. What do you guys have to say about that?
Are you kidding me? They're the executive branch. You know, they execute the
Can you
laws.
repeat the question, honey? 'Cause
Sure.
I didn't
It
hear.
says oil prices are dependent upon supply and demand. Presidential control is not as simple as what the people think. So basically, Pati Sanchez, I think she's inferring there's a lot of red tape that a president can't get through, I guess, when it comes to oil prices. Now, here's an oxymoron. It's funny. Que mala eres. She keeps saying she's going to fix things on day one.
How?
But how is she going to fix things when I thought for the last 3.5 years everything was great?
Exactly.
I thought everything was fine. I thought the economy was fine. I thought there was no problem at the border. All of
Well-
a sudden, things are a problem. What's happening?
We need to tie 2 issues to one that's
Go
really
ahead.
important. The Keystone XL pipeline that got shut down by the Biden administration.
On day
That was a
one.
lot of jobs, and that was not only important, I would argue, for energy independence, but it was also important for the preservation of the future of our country when it comes to national security. Because guess what? When we killed that, we still needed the production. I don't know if many people know, but we were importing dirty coal when Gavin Newsom was shutting down oil leases. But we ended up shutting down oil leases on federal lands by the Biden administration. So guess what? That means that's true. Whoever said that,
Pati Sanchez.
Pati Sanchez, the production demand is still necessary. Otherwise, gas prices go up, right?
Right.
If supply goes down, the cost goes up. Well, guess what happened? We ended up having to import from other countries, and not only so now we ended up
Outsourcing.
and sure enough, what did they also do? Here's another. When it comes to energy, they actually allowed for the Nord Stream 2 to happen. Guess who that directly funded? It directly funded Russia. So it
Yes.
funded their military that actually invaded Ukraine. These anti-war people, these people that say we care about democracy, we want to preserve Ukraine, all they did was fund the military machine of Russia. Again, do not believe me. Do your homework. Nord Stream 2
Yes.
was allowed to happen under the Biden administration.
Hello.
There's
So
a lot
two-
of negotiating that goes behind the scenes that
100%.
we are not aware, where they take a lot of our rights or they're exchanging a lot of the stuff, and we're having to fork out that on our tax dollars.
That's right.
Let
And
me
so,
ask you guys this: how do other nations and countries see this current president of the United States? How do they see us, the current administration right now? Do they think we're weak? Do they think we're strong? What do you think?
It was just actually mentioned. There was I can't remember the guy in the Biden administration, but he basically tried to leverage against China. There was a big conversation. I can't remember the actual conversation, but ultimately he basically mentioned that he wanted to push China into a corner, and they pushed back and said, "Look, you have no power here. Like he literally insulted the guy, Anthony Blinken."
Yeah.
So separate point, but there's also another reason why BRICS is officially being established, right? What is it? Russia, India, China, South Africa. Great. There's one other country.
What's BRICS? A new currency?
BRICS is the pushing of the new currency.
That's what I thought.
Why are they doing that? Because the dollar's going
It's
down.
going down.
Why is Iran working with Russia?
Mm-hmm.
Why is these nations being more empowered? Because America is weak.
Right.
America used to have relationships that didn't allow that. Actually set restrictions, tariffs. That's why do you think Trump talked tariffs so much? And that's the hard part, right? Because there's a lot of layers to this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's really important for the Chicano community to understand when he was talking tariffs, he was saying we need to stop World War III.
Yep.
We need to
Yes.
set restrictions on other countries. Iran wouldn't have had the funding that they had, and that they wouldn't have ended up funding Hamas, which ultimately attacked Israel. The whole issue with the Middle East war wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have funded Iran. That was directly under Obama and then 2.0 under Biden because Trump cut that off.
Jeez, weak. Shots
Yes.
fired on that one. How do you think the world sees us? Are we weak or strong currently? And how do you think they'll
Completely
see
weak.
47 if 45 becomes 47?
And that should be the number one concern is the perspective from other countries because we all have children. And guess who's going to be going out and fighting us in the front lines? We don't even have a strong army per se. And they know that. Yeah. They know that. It's out in the open and they know that. They know that we're readily available for an attack.
Yep.
We're
Yep.
open. We're being constantly attacked.
Yep.
How many times have we had our internet down?
Yep.
Our social security is being put out there. You
All
think
the
that that's not
hacks.
an attack? Those
All
are
the
an
hacks.
attacks on
Yeah.
Americans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're getting us on so many different levels, not just on a war. There's actually a war happening at this moment.
Yeah.
And they're laughing because they're getting away with it.
Yeah. It funds the military complex.
Completely.
I think Eisenhower warned about that. It is a reality, the administrative agencies. But think about Taiwan. I mean, Taiwan is a nation that you have a lot of China. Basically, the Chinese do not fear America. Otherwise, why would they be circling Taiwan? Taiwan, if we lose Taiwan, if we don't strengthen that support system around Taiwan, we lose them. We lose a big part of the silicon that goes to Silicon Valley. Guess what happens to tech, right? So there's important elements on why we need to have geopolitical strong relationships. But if America, I mean, I've said it before in different speeches. The ghosts of the past are speaking. Ronald Reagan said it himself. If America is not the shining city on a hill, well, guess what happens? Chaos. Because there's nothing that guides and ultimately puts checks, and not in a war sense, right? We should be basically getting out of these foreign wars, but at least when it comes to the power economically that we provide to the rest of the world, that's why the dollar was the standard, that it ultimately drove respect for the other nations to make sure they played nice with us.
Absolutely. That's a great. And to the chat, I want you guys. I saw someone comment saying, what about policies? If you guys have any questions, go ahead and drop it inside the chat. Again, we got Pete Hernandez in the Casa, District 18. He's on the road there. He's not gonna sleep until November 6th. Right. Until it's all over, because we're looking to flip seats and put Raza in positions where we need to be.
Yeah, there was one comment in there that I want to respond to that said that the corporations are taking over the Republican Party. I want to encourage all of you folks that it's not even about the party. But I'm telling you right now, there's a grassroots sentiment of Hispanics, right? We have Karina here, who's literally the head honcho of the California Republican National Assembly in California, that literally now puts us, the Hispanic community, in the driver's seat. But you have to join us. We want you to be here. We want you to be a part of the team, right? At the end of the day, the bottom-up sentiment will be a part of the California Republican Party if you join us. We're not trying to exclude you. We want you to be a part of it because we want to basically restore California and the rest of this country. 40% of California is Hispanic. We take over the party, guess what happens? The Hispanic community has the strongest voice in the state, and it'll stay. It'll preserve los valores conservativos, which all of us care about.
And I think that our community needs to be more involved, more involved on a political
Yes.
aspect. We've kind of just turned the other way, and now we're all suffering the consequences. We're all suffering in our pockets. We're all suffering in our children's education, in our homes. There's
Yeah.
no more security in our homes. Do you know what I do in the community? I go around and help build neighborhood watches within Hispanic, Spanish-speaking communities, and the majority have complaints where they have homeless moving into their backyards. Homeless. Imagine your wife, you leave to work, your wife with your small children wakes up to go to her backyard and there's a homeless encamped in her backyard. She contacts the PD only to find out that they can't do anything about it because there's no harm. So that's the issues that we're living because we're uninformed.
That's right.
I've been saying this. Maybe you guys can either support it or maybe you give your own opinion on. I've been saying the number one issue, the number one thing that for the Raza is the economy.
It is.
That's the number one thing
Exactly.
because this is, excuse me, this is the bacon that we're putting on our table. This is the money in our pocket, allowing us to save, allowing us to buy a house. Don't get it twisted. A lot of things are just smoke screen. They talk about the border every 4 years. They talk about this. They talk about that. But I believe the economy should be the number
one
one deal maker or breaker.
Most
and
definitely.
this current administration has held seats, cabinets. Do they control the House in the Congress?
So the House is by 2
50-50?
seats Republican,
Okay.
but the Senate is Democrat, and obviously the presidency.
Okay, got it. They had all the opportunities in the world to be able to do right by the economy because of bad policies, bad business practices, which they will continue.
That's right.
Believe me,
That's
if
right.
Kamala gets in the office, Raza, they will continue down the road.
That's right.
She's Biden 2.0. She kept deflecting that. I don't know if you noticed that,
Yes.
right? I'm not Biden. I'm not Biden. No, yes, you
And she will
are.
she will
You're a
continue
mini
doing
Biden,
that.
cabrona.
She said, and they can't hear me even if I yell. I'm letting you know. She said that the last few weeks when he gave her, passed down what they call it he passed down the what do you call it, honey? When you're giving her the position.
The mantle.
Oh,
Yeah, the mantle or the torch or what do they call it?
yeah,
Yeah,
you're
torch.
passing
Sure.
on
Yes.
the torch.
But
So
yes.
she was worshiping that he's one of the greatest presidents of all time, that he's done a phenomenal job. So I keep saying people, oh, she's not him. Okay, really? Then answer me why.
That's a good
is
point.
she worshiping his presidency?
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Yes.
Why would she give credit to someone who she wants to distance herself from? She's saying
exactly.
that she said then he's a good president, but all of a sudden now she's trying to play distant from him.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that she's the future, right? You guys heard her?
Yep,
Yesterday?
yep.
I mean, I think the campaign is just confused, disorganized. They don't know what to do. I believe the main focal point for Kamala was just say less.
Yes.
Get through the debate, say less. But she couldn't even, if she tried, tell the truth or act natural because it looks like a robot. I mean, just look at her. Does anyone even believe anything that she says? It's just spewing out. And 45, to keep it real, 45 has... I mean, he doesn't have to run for office. He could sail away into the sunset
right.
and be fine and doesn't have to stick up or fight for anyone.
That's right.
And that's the reason that I voted for him. I said, wait a second. No. Este cabrón, he's helping the raza, helping the people. Could you guys give any points? What did 45 do for us? What did 45 do for the raza, the people, that Joe Biden did? And can you mention anything?
Yeah, so one of the things I thought was really profound, and back to the economy that you mentioned, was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Investment Act. People don't realize what that did. Kamala Harris basically came out of the gate saying he just wants to give the tax breaks for these big corporations. It's so manipulated what she's saying. What he did with that Tax Cuts and Jobs and Investment Act basically required that if you wanted to have a tax break, you had to repatriate jobs. Basically, repatriation, all it is you're bringing jobs from other countries back into the U.S. Now you're increasing the employment rate. And you're reducing the capital gains. Bottom line is it's reducing cost, and it trickles down to where it's higher employment, higher wages, and by default, it's creating more opportunity because it's reinvigorating our economy instead of the global economy is what's destroying us.
Yeah.
We're dependent upon other nations. I mean, like I said, if Silicon Valley all of a sudden gets cut off of Silicon because China invades Taiwan, then before you know it, we're not going to have the technology that we need. So But separate point. So the Tax Cuts and Jobs Investment Act, he did the Abraham peace accords, right? He preserved peace in the Middle East, right? He had no wars. He ultimately made sure that the geopolitical relationships that he had were really strong. I mean, he called Kim Jong-un Rocket Man, right? He called this guy out, but he also met with them, right? So he's like
Rocket
old school
Man.
gangster. Like, he's like, look, I'm going to talk to you, but I'm not playing games at the same time, right? He showed that guy... I forgot that Middle Eastern gentleman. He gave him a picture of his house, right?
Yes.
That's what he mentioned.
Leader of the Taliban.
Like, hey, you're gonna mess with this. Look, this is your house. And
Yeah.
so, bottom line. So Abraham Accords, the Tax Cuts and Jobs and Investment Act. He did opportunity zones. What did that do? That encouraged investors who had money to invest in minority communities. You invest in that community, you're gonna get a tax break. What does that do to that minority community? I sat as a county supervisor. That conversation came up in our agenda. We had a whole forum about it because we were like, because literally the way, if you look it up through I can't remember what department, what administration, but you go to their opportunity zone website. They actually created a map of all the whole country and said, okay, these are considered opportunity zones, which is minority, lower income areas. And in those areas, if you invest, you're going to get a tax break. But what ended up doing is basically encourage investment into those communities and created opportunity, jobs, all the good things that we want. It was a creative thing. Tim Scott, right? Senator Tim Scott is the one that, along with President Trump, right? The supposed racist, he's working with an African-American man to create solutions for minorities. Like, there's a ton of other things that I can mention. I don't want to eat up my time, but this was,
Right.
I mean, President
On and on,
Trump,
but the number
But
one
as-
thing it looks like was the economy.
The
Economy was very
Hispanics,
driven.
we had the highest rise on business ownership and home ownership.
Yeah, of course, absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Pásale.
We had the most Hispanic businesses opening up, and during that time, and during the Biden, most of them closed. We're all, as I'm a business owner, you're a business owner,
right.
and we're being overtaxed on so many different
100%.
levels. Yet your Target, your Walmart, they get by with so many different incentives to keep open.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
what does that? What does that do? Do people not understand what the small businesses do and how we fortify our local communities?
So his economic policies were the strongest, and that's
strongest.
why
Yes.
he had the best economy
Yep.
out of any single president. And I think that'll be
Yep.
one of the focal points when he comes
Yep.
back in
Yep.
office.
Exactly.
Amor, you want to say something?
So, guys, I don't want to brag, but back in, I think it was 2019, I went as, I'm going to say the number. I'm just going to say the number. I'm a wedding photographer, portrait photographer, and I went as high as to raise my rates to $6,000 per wedding. And I was booking at least one of those per month, plus the other 5,000. 4,000 was my lowest. And from 2017, 18, 19, I was at the 200 or above. And since then, I have not been able to go. My highest now is 4,000. My highest then was 6,000. So I don't understand how I went down instead. We're supposed to go up, right? On prices. But with the 4,000 one, in 3 years, I've only booked maybe 2 of them.
Wow.
People are hiring me for now 2,000, and to the point where I just told my husband I'm no longer going to do weddings because people don't want to pay. They don't want to pay, and I understand. I had a client that booked me last year in November, and she called me, right, honey? She called me days before. And she was crying because she told me, "I'm sorry, Christina, I have to cancel you." And that was at one of the low bracket collections. And she said, "I just can't afford you. I can't afford it." And that was the low, like a 2,000. So absolutely, Biden, Kamala have really messed it up for business owners. Yep. And I was thriving under Trump, and I felt good. I felt like I could continue to grow, and just everything changed for me. So now I'm doing other work. I'm working a lot on portraits and trying to find out I've been talking to my husband and saying, I think I'm coming to that end already. And it's sad because, like I said, I was thriving, but yes, I was making a lot of money under Trump, and it all ended when Biden came in.
Risky Business of the Casa said, you still haven't spoken directly to the raza on anything, cabron. You haven't been paying attention because we've been talking about the economy. We talked about fracking.
Yeah.
We talked about firearms.
Immigration.
We talked about immigration. We talked about trafficking, the economy. We talked about the debate. This is because most of the raza, if we don't let them know, they'll just listen to Univision and let Univision tell them what to do, just like we used to.
I encourage Rising. Okay, Rising, right there. You got a little
Rising
personal there.
Warrior keeps
Check this out. Why
chiming
don't you
in.
go to my website? It's www.christinediaz.com. I am considered, and you know, Karina could say this, one of the greatest photographers in the state of California, in our nation. So I do not need to step up my game. Let me tell you something. It's the people that cannot afford to pay now, okay? So don't you tell me to step it up when I have worked very hard. And I encourage you again, go to my website, www.christinediaz.com, and you will see who you're talking to. Thank you very much.
Sencal's in the Casa. NGL, my savings are disappearing under Biden.
That's right.
How can you save money right now?
You
People are
can't. You
working
just-
3 jobs
You
just
don't
to
have
get
to
by.
go so far. You can just go to your grocery store. How many items did you bring home with $100 bill? How many items? Tell that to a single mother who has to raise children.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Tell
Exactly.
that to three, person that has a job with 3 different jobs, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
can barely make ends meet. I was talking to an engineer who cannot afford to buy a house and can barely afford in the place that they're living at. This is a person that went to school and is very well educated, and their partner is very well educated as well, and they cannot afford it. If they cannot afford it, what alone are the rest of the raza?
Absolutely.
Can you imagine how they're doing?
Yeah, exactly. You know what? We got to pay attention, Raza. Let's go back and listen to the replay. We're almost going to wrap up right now. Go back and to listen to the replay. We covered a lot of things. Definitely the Raza, just to answer the question that I said on my live earlier, we're going to answer. The Raza is conservative by nature. Why do you think that there's this little dicho and saying, oh, I'm Raza, I vote Democrat? Where did that come from? Because I've heard of that a lot. Was that just a lot of maybe the United Farm Workers being bought through the Democratic Party? Or I've heard someone say that I'm Raza, I vote Democrat. I'm like, wait a second. All of their values don't line up with the Raza's value.
right.
You know, because I'm one of the only few Chicano pages on YouTube and on Instagram. 95%, maybe even 98%
Yep.
are liberal.
Right.
Okay. And they get really mad at me, Pete,
Yeah.
when I tell them, okay, you're okay with little boys going into girls'
That's
bathrooms.
right.
You're
Amen.
okay with your children not having to ask their parents' permission and get a sex change.
That's
And
right.
if they want to, they'll run away from home and you have no more rights. They'll strip the rights away from you. These are all Democratic parties. When I tell them these things, you're okay with this, you're okay with that, it seems like they tuck their tail, but we're sitting at the same table because we're all raza.
Yeah.
We're Chicanos and we're Mexicanos
And
and Americanos. And I don't want the people to get it twisted, okay?
Yeah.
Because they see the Chicano flag. They see we got Mexico on one side. They see you got the United States on another side. And someone asked me one time, well, Mikey, if Mexico were to go to war with the United States, who would you lace your boots up? And that was a really, really good question. I thought about it for a second, and I said, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm America first.
Yeah.
This is the country that my parents almost died getting to
Yes.
for the dream of having prosperity.
Yep.
That's the number one policy. That's the number one dream for the Raza, is to get in this country and to prosper. So
Yep.
don't get it twisted. It's always America first, but we don't no menospreciamos the motherland.
Yeah, I love Mexico. I miss Mexico. I really do. And at the end of the day, I have so many fond memories. Mis tios are still over there. I have tias over there. You know, I would love to be that representative in Congress that builds an amazing bridge of relationship with Mexico to increase trade, to increase ultimately a strong economic opportunity, but at the same time, obviously building relations to make sure that we're preserving the things that we value
Oh,
as
yeah.
Mexicanos, right? So yeah, I love using that term. Don't get it twisted, because it is the truth that, yes, we want to preserve America. But here's the question, right? Why do you come here
Exactly.
if it's not as good as Mexico, right? And I'm not saying Mexico's not, it's amazing, right? There's a lot of beautiful things about Mexico.
Absolutely.
I remember Cuautla, Puebla. I remember San Rafael, where my mother's from. God rest her soul. Right, Chalco, Mexico, where my dad's from. Estado de Mexico, right, to go to Teotihuacan. So I've been there. I've lived there. So, but the point is, if you're coming here, it's because you think you're going to live a better life.
Come on.
Right? Why would you live here? Otherwise, and there are some that come and just for temporary reasons. That's a whole separate issue.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about why are we here?
Right.
And if we're here, we need to speak the talk of unity. Let's work together. Let's build things that represent we the people, right? What we care about. Let's restore the things that we care about. And this is not about Trump, right? Trump is one man. He'll have maybe one more term. God bless him.
And that's it.
Right?
You can only run one
so
more term.
we need to build that next bench, right? I mean, really, my ask to the Chicano community is join us at the table. Be a part of the conversation. I'm not here to withhold anything from you. I'm here saying the truth, right? Being honest, because I want you to know what I know. I want you to understand what I understand. I want you to get elected. I want you to have the opportunity. I'm 50 years old. I am not going to do this forever, and I do not want to be Nancy Pelosi or Dianne Feinstein, God rest her soul. I don't want to die in office. We need to have the mindset that it's time to take that power and hand it right back to the people. One final point. Donald Trump's economic plan. When you're bent on making sure that you're shrinking the government, the size of government, shrinking the influence in the bureaucracy of government, what are you saying to the people? He said it already before. I've heard his speeches. I want to take that power and hand it back to you. That means a lot of really good things. That means rights. That means income. That means opportunity. That means freedom. So this message, it's a sermon on freedom when he's talking economic policies of restoring that power back to you, because he wants you to have all those things. Guess what happens when you decentralize government? You're building up everybody else. If everything becomes centralized, why is, it's funny how we have, my opposing side arguing for, or anti, I should say, corporate sentiments, right? Corporations are taking everything over, destroying small businesses. Government is a corporate class. Government is a centralized government. It's taking away power from the people. So what we're arguing as conservatives, right? Even if you don't like the Republican term, fine. At the end of the day, I consider more faithfully as a conservative.
Me too.
I want to hand that power back to you. Well, guess what happens when I hand power back to you? If I hand power to my neighbors where I live, if they're all doing well, guess what? They're going to have extra time. They're going to enjoy their families. Oh, they're going to be able to take vacations. They might actually be watching each other's back now because they have time to relax a little bit, not be stressed out and burnt out. Now, all of a sudden, they're watching each other's home. Everybody's going on vacation. And I'm just saying this from experience because this is what happened in my community. That's what you're doing. You're building established neighborhoods and people are living well. Then guess what? You have peace. Don't we want peace?
Absolutely.
Then we got to take that power from government and hand it back to the people.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's one of the
that's
things, right? Democrats want more government.
and we want less government.
Less government.
We want more, like he said, more individuality. And as an individual, we have more rights.
That's right.
You know,
it's
and
funny you said you want peace. The last time I checked the price tag on the Ukraine war, it's already going over $200 billion.
Right.
Right.
Gente, if we vote someone in office that has weak negotiation skills, has no command presence with the other nations and countries in the world, what's going to happen is war. And when you do vote someone that has command presence and strength with other countries, guess what's happened? No war. And no war means stimulation to our economy.
That's
and
right.
the money stays here.
That's right.
And our
Exactly.
sons and our daughters get to live
That's
their
right.
lives. And we
Amen.
don't have to meddle in affairs Ukraine is a piece in the world that who knows where it's at. I mean, if you spin the globe, would you be able to find Ukraine? Like, where is that?
It's buried somewhere
Yeah.
between
It's
Russia
somewhere in there, right?
and
So
Europe.
again,
Let's talk a little bit. I mean, we're getting asked already
Sure.
about women's rights.
Questions.
Okay, so
Okay.
obviously the big one. We're talking about abortions here.
Fine.
And I think, Pete, it would be great to have your opinion, but overall, I would like to have Karina, because I've always told my husband, at the end of the day, okay, women, let's talk. Let's, as a conservative
Yeah.
woman, of someone with values, like what your thoughts are. Maybe we could start with Pete and then Karina, because, people are saying they're taking away women's rights. That's the thing that Kamala's hammering people. They're taking your rights, right? And
I want-
honestly, they're going to your emotions.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think they heard
I-
Yeah,
I-
you
I-
are. You're 60%. It's
but
just
they-
awful.
but
Watch
everybody
talking
tells
to
me-
it. Yeah, it doesn't matter what they say. They
Yeah.
can only hear on their phones. Watch. We're talking to it.
So,
See that?
we're going to talk about women's rights and how Kamala
Just muffled.
keeps saying things like,
Sure.
that
She's
Trump-
running on the woman
Yeah.
card, saying she'll
Right.
do more for women than a
and that
man
Trump
would
wants
do
to
for
take
women.
away women's rights.
Okay,
So
Pete,
I
what you
would-
think about that?
Well, I mean, just by default, we're asking about women's rights. So if government drives the choices of women, do women really have freedom? But
Good
aside
point.
from that, really important to my gente, I want you to hear me. I love you. I really do. I mean, the premise of what they're saying is an insult. I'm telling you, they're trying to insult your intelligence. They're arguing, well, and it didn't come up enough. I think they barely hinted on it with the Supreme Court decision. Supreme Court struck down Roe versus Wade. Guess what they're hinging on your women's rights? Roe versus Wade.
Yes.
If you read the actual opinion, which I've gone through it, can't say I've read the whole thing. It's a long opinion. But I can tell you what it clarifies is this is not a ban on abortion. It actually, what it does is it hands power back to the states. This is now a states issue. Well, here's the important part. What happens when you federalize any issue? You take that power and the conversation of that power out of the people's hands. You put that conversation only in the elite, only in the federal, only in the Congress. That's where that conversation happens. The people are far removed from the conversation because no longer is it a state right. So what the Supreme Court officially did is said, this does not belong in the federal government's hands. The Constitution does not give a right to an abortion. This is actually a right, though, that does need to be decided by the people. So when they struck down Roe versus Wade, they didn't strike down abortion. Donald Trump said it. And it's true. Some states went higher on abortion. Some states cut off abortion. But it's here's the reality, right? And this is kind of alludes to what I did as a county supervisor. When the vaccine mandates came about, one of the things that I was very passionate about was informed consent. What is informed consent? It says you make the choice,
Yes.
but understand that according to informed consent, you're going to do your homework. And if anything, I'm going to require of government is they educate you. They tell you the whole truth when it comes to you taking this experimental vaccine. So you have the right to choose at that point. That's what I believe when it comes down to what happened with the Supreme Court is they basically said, look, you need to be informed. Let's allow why is it that it's the Democrats who are saying that we shouldn't be taking women's rights away? They're striking down the heartbeat bills every single time. Why do they strike down a heartbeat bill? If they want you to be empowered and informed, but they're willing to take away your right to understand what happens. Why? Because a woman, when she sees that heartbeat,
Changes your
she's
mind.
going to think about it. She might still do it. She still has the right to do it, but she might change her mind. Why? So why don't they
Yeah.
want you to change your mind? Because they want to control you. It's just the reality. Why is it that this guy went to jail? Kamala Harris actually sent him to jail. Convicted him and sent him to jail. Why? Because he caught literally Planned Parenthood openly admitting that they were spending money on babies' body parts. They were selling baby body parts. He revealed that to the world and he got prosecuted.
This is what they cloak in women's
This is
health
what they say
care.
that they care about women's health care.
So, like a lot of people don't say this, 45, when he was in office, gente, for the women, all my ladies, the Chicano Tube ladies, when 45 was in office, he extended FMLA leave
That's right.
to the women,
That's a good point.
adding
Stay
another
home.
month and a half, even included the husbands to be home for their newborn children and bereavement leave. Actually, I think it was Ivanka. What's the daughter's name? Not
Well,
Ivanka. Se me olvida the daughter's
Ivanka.
name. It was Ivanka. I
Yeah,
was right.
Ivanka.
I was thinking of someone else. It was Ivanka. She was the one that championed
Yes.
that in. So again, they hang off a cliff on Roe versus Wade,
Yep.
but as a cloak,
'Cause they wanna
I think
divide.
45 did
Yeah.
more for women
Divide.
than Kamala Harris will
That's right.
ever do.
That's right. Well,
And then what's the issue too? Like, how many women suffer on not being able to have children?
Hello.
How many women? Let's touch that issue. A lot of women.
10%
And
of the population, female population,
Yeah.
has PCOS.
yes.
And I have PCOS. And, a lot of women with PCOS struggle with infertility.
Exactly.
So 10% of the women in this country. That's a big percentage.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about the issues that are the repercussions of having an abortion that are long lasting. And some of them can't have children after having an abortion. And no one's talking about those numbers, or no one's talking about those issues. And when they want to try to have children, that's just another consequence that no one's chatting about.
Well, let me ask the ladies this. We got two ladies on the panel, okay? Shout out to the ladies. We got Karina Powers in the casa, the chairwoman for the RNHA, and Miss Chicano Tube. You as a woman, what are your priority policies? Because people are talking about women's policies, help women. Then what would you want from a president?
Okay, so the first thing I want is for, as a woman, as a mother, the first thing I want is them to cut it out with that bullshit of having boys in girls' bathrooms. Cut that shit out now. Okay, women's rights. Why is Kamala not talking about these men, these boys with balls and a penis, pretty much beating up on girls? You know what I'm saying? In sports, she's totally okay with that, and then she wants to talk about killing babies is a righteous thing. So make that make sense. That's the number one thing. I want them to cut it out with that bullshit. I want them to cut out the talking about gender, transgenderism in schools and elementaries. My 5-year-old has no business knowing, being educated on boys being girls and girls being boys. So that needs to be cut out immediately. That's the first thing. As far as abortions go, I'm pro life. But, I know there's situations where, a woman gets raped and I will not judge her, or a woman's life is in jeopardy. But why don't we start educating women with morals? And you know what? Don't be promiscuous. Stop opening your legs to any guy without, let's start with morality. Why aren't we teaching that? Why aren't we teaching don't open your legs to any random guy? Why aren't we teaching that? See, they don't want to talk about that.
Viewer discretion.
So,
Any
excuse
graphical
my
news.
language,
That's true.
but
We're hitting the facts. The Raza
we're
wants
hitting
it
facts.
directly.
You know what I'm
We're going to
saying?
give it to you directly.
Cierra
no
las
cut. That's
piernas,
how you know this
mija.
is a real
Mi
conversation.
abuelita me decía, cierra las piernas. Exactly that, you know?
So
the
what
morality.
policies, though, do you think
to me,
would make it
okay.
attractive for a woman to vote for a president?
Well, for
I was
me,
talking about FMLA. That's probably a big one. Time off.
yes.
Healthcare?
Totally. Healthcare, for sure. Healthcare. I do believe in equality when it comes to getting paid. Though I believe in equality, period. But, women should be getting paid as much as a man if they're in the same industry. Absolutely. What else? But I also believe that we're not equal when it comes to the physique. I did see a video the other day where a female police officer got tackled by, did you see that? Did you see that video? So that's where, I know a woman can't stand a chance with a man, and she got tackled by the guy, and she didn't even want to shoot him because he was a man of color. So we already know that
They'll gaslight that.
yes.
They will gaslight.
They'll
That's a whole
gaslight that.
separate
Yes,
issue.
absolutely. Yeah. So, what do I want? You know what? I'm going to be honest. I want a strong president. I like men to be alpha. I like to feel protected. And definitely Kamala doesn't portray that. Not that I think that a woman shouldn't be president. I absolutely would love to see a woman president. But I definitely don't believe Kamala is the right one.
Powers 2028.
Yes, I want strength. I want intelligence. I want morals. Where else do I want? I want to make money. I want, they're all about my body, my choice. But what about the vaccines, right, guys? They're the first ones to mandate the vaccines, right?
That's right.
And, we are living in times where a big percentage, Dr. Berg was saying that there's about 40% of the population that have autoimmune disorder. And so people with autoimmune disorder are at higher risk of developing disease with, vaccines and what's out in the environment. So definitely we need that freedom as parents. We need freedom as mothers to decide, for our children, and less government for sure. That's what I want.
Karina, what do you think, lastly, before we wrap up? And then we're going to do some closing statements right now and put some plugs in there for what's going on with the campaigns. What do you think is what a woman want in a president? What policies or what issues pertain to women and affect them first or directly?
To make families great again, to make health great again. And that's where Kennedy comes in on board with the Trump campaign, is to bring that aspect back, to bring security. And then to also bring an economical better stance, especially in our communities, because when there's a better economy, there's a better family being run behind that. And we don't have to go as a mother. You don't have to be deciding what groceries do I need to buy or what do I take home. And those are important factors, and it's creating a family. So, and that goes back and tying to the abortion issues. Like, why are we going to allow for these individuals to tell us how many or how much can we procreate?
Right.
Why do they want less of us out there? Think about that question. Why don't they want that many of us? Question that. Just think of the army of ants.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Pete, we're going to go ahead and do some closing statements.
Yeah.
We got to November 6th, running for District 18. We're looking to unseat that person that's been there too many years.
Right.
But again, her policies don't align with the Raza. We talked about a lot of things today. What's going on with the campaign? Closing words, my friend.
Well, I just wanted to make one final point about the abortion issue because I'm not running from it. It is a reality. So what was mentioned that was really important in the debate had to do with Kamala basically saying that, and even the moderator said there's no, basically late term or post birth abortions, right? Right, and that was 100% a lie.
That was a lie from the pits of hell.
So, I knew it because in California, I couldn't remember the bill, but I looked it up, legiscan.gov, and you look it up, AB 2223. It might have changed numbers, but at the end of the day, it did get passed. But basically, that bill. Here's the thing: they say, "Oh, no babies are being killed."
Yes,
you have to ask yourself the question: what do they mean by that? Because when he said it, it kind of creates this sentiment of supposedly of truth, but in reality, if you look it up. All it does is basically it allows. So I guess I should ask it as a question. What would you think if a doctor allowed a baby to die? Right. So it's not even that he's intentionally killing it, but certain measures need to be taken to protect the baby, to preserve the health of that baby, especially if it comes out with issues. So basically, AB 2223, what it allows for the baby, for the coroner, which is the sheriff usually, the coroner to not record anything that's a late-term death, anything considered criminal when it comes to the death of a baby, right? Anything with up to 20 weeks is basically, at that point, it'd be considered an abortion. But past that, it would allow the doctor to do whatever he wants, and the coroner could not record it. So there would be no criminality attached to the death of that baby. So how is it being spun that it's telling you, no, we're not trying to kill babies. That's not true. That's not happening, President Trump. But the bill actually says you can't record a death at the late term or basically post-birth, right? They called it perinatal death.
That part.
So anyways, that's why this is not about me agreeing or disagreeing. This is me telling you the facts. Look it up yourself, like I said. So back to the race. I'm obviously passionate about the truth. I've always been that way. There's a reason why Democrats support me. They support me because at the end of the day, in politics, it's a dirty environment. And I want people to ultimately vote for me because they know that I stand on conviction. I will run and serve 2 years. And if I do things in there that people don't like, I'm going to do them based off of my convictions, my Christian convictions and my convictions as a Mexicano, as a Chicano. And if people don't like me and don't like me, I'm okay with it.
Right.
I'm not looking to get reelected. I'm looking to do a job. I'm looking to fix the economy, open up people's lives, make it better, minimize the bureaucracy, minimize the death and the damage that's happening from stupid policies. That's what I'm passionate about. So Congressional District 18, we're off to the November races. We're hitting the ground running. Look me up on HernandezForCongress.com. Everything @_Hernandez. For Congress, Hernandez 2024 also. You can look me up. I also have a Rumble page. I have a YouTube page. I have all the social media norms. It's not very hard to find me. I'm the only Chicano in the race.
That's right. That's right. Pete Hernandez. District 18. Karina Powers, last words on anything, what we talked about tonight, message over to constituents, what you're involved in, plug in the radio station one more time. Go ahead.
It's Comi 1340. It's a Mondays from 2 to 4 p.m. It's in Spanish conservative talk show. I'm also the chairwoman for the Republican National Hispanic Assembly. Plug in there. We do a lot of informed sessions as far as showing you how to get active, how to be a volunteer. If you're in school, we also offer credits. So if you reach out to us, you can reach us at rnhaca.org. We're involved in so many different levels. We're the ones that are making the decisions for the Raza because we're the ones showing up.
Yes.
So I challenge every listener here tonight to show up so that you're part of that decision making. That's
right.
the seat in the table, is showing up.
That's right. That's right. Making your vote count. That's what we got to do. Miss Chicano Tube, any last words on anything? The debate, policies, anything over to the chat? Last words.
I just want to thank Peter and Karina for being here today. Your presence is always welcome. We appreciate you. And thank you for the chat. We got pros and cons, and that's lovely. What I'm just not going to allow is disrespect to any of our guests.
Amen.
So I did have to delete maybe like 2 or 3 people. So I don't allow that. I mean, you could say what you think about your, who you're going to vote for, but I'm not going to allow disrespect towards my guests. And I thank all of you guys for tuning in tonight. To be continued. Honey?
Yeah, that's right. We're going all the way to November 6th. We're not stopping. We're not going to stop. There's a wave. The Raza is uniting, getting together again. Thank you guys again. I want to say the same thing Ms. Chicano Tube said. Thank you. Almost word
Praise
for
God.
word. Pete Hernandez, boots in the ground, doing it, fighting. Karina Powers also. You know what I mean?
Amen.
Remember when me and Miss Chicano Tube were talking with Karina Powers, and we're like, oh my gosh, the state looks like we just might have to get out of the state. And Karina Powers is like, I'm not going nowhere. I'm going to
fighting.
be here, and I'm going to be fighting for the people. You lit a fire under us. We're going to do our part all the way to November 6th. Raza, go ahead and catch the replay. That way you can listen to everything that we said. Vote for Pete Hernandez, Congress District 18. Karina Powers, follow her also. Follow RNHA also on IG. I appreciate you guys. We are done. Raza, we're out. We'll see you to the next episode. But remember what we always say. Remember what we always say. In the end, all you got is the memories. We'll see you on the road to the elections. Take care.
God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.